What's going on? What's going on, team? Welcome back to another week. Welcome back to another Stock Talk. If you guys are new here, my name is Xander with Fates of Trading Academy. In this video, what we'll be doing is we'll be going over the SPY, the S&P 500, and NASDAQ, where those are at from a technical standpoint, and we'll also cover some of the top opportunities that we're seeing in this week. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, make sure to smash that thumbs up button. Support the channel. It definitely helps with the algorithm. It helps other people get exposed to, an educated, analysis of the stock market and of the opportunities that are being presented. If you guys aren't subscribed, make sure to subscribe. So let's jump right into it. So go ahead and taking a look at the SPY, which is the S&P 500. We basically see that this has been trading within this channel, this ascending channel, since basically the end of November. And the pattern that we see, we've been kind of following along with this pattern for some time now, but the pattern that we see is every time it comes up to the top, we find resistance, we come down, comes to the top, find resistance, comes down, find support, comes to the top, find resistance, gets rejected, comes down, finds support, comes to the top, gets rejected, comes down, finds support once again. Came up again, got rejected, came down, found support. And now we're at the top of this channel that we've been following pretty much, like I said, since the beginning of November. And so now we're at the top of this channel, and based on historic patterns, we know that this tends to sell off every time that we approach the top of this resistance. On top of that, if we're going to take a look at the RSI, we see that we're fairly overbought as well on the 4-hour frequency, and we aren't looking very hot on the MACD either. So with these two things, with these things all lining up, it really makes sense to be prepared for a potential market correction, a bit of a pullback. So that's in essence what I'm anticipating in the next week or maybe week and a half too, is seeing a bit of a correction happen here. And that's essentially what we're seeing in the NASDAQ as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the NASDAQ, which is /NQ. That's what we're going to be taking a look at. And we in essence see the same pattern playing out. We haven't necessarily been trading in a similar channel. However, we have been trading in overbought territories as well. So with this being overbought, the SPY being overbought, and the technicals really not making too much sense for that to continue to keep heading up, it's reasonable to assume that there will be a correction in the near future. So in essence, that's what all I'm saying is just be prepared for that. It's better to be prepared than be surprised. So, it could definitely continue to the upside for maybe another day or two. But in essence, just be careful, be cautious, and watch these two charts. That way you have a better understanding of the overall market and what's going on with that. And if it's overbought or oversold, and many of these stocks will actually correlate. If the market's going to be, selling off, these stocks will also be selling off. If the market's going to be going to the upside, it's also going to be going to the upside as well. So jumping into the opportunities that we're watching for this week, there's quite a bit. I'll probably cover some of the more exciting ones. And let's jump into it. So the first one is going to be ADES. So this one had a fairly significant pullback. We hit about the -2 standard deviation. And so we're also, based on the RSI, we're fairly oversold, which is a good indication. The MACD is starting to, loop around. We're about to go into a potential uptrend. So fairly decent opportunity here to jump into something like this. We haven't yet broken the EMA. However, we are hugging it right now. So we'll see what happens on Monday. And if we do break it, I see, at least potential back to the SMA, which is about 8%, which is a fairly great, return considering we're not even going to all-time highs. The next one that we're going to be taking a look at is going to be RCL. So this one also has been selling off for basically last week. We are basically breaking the EMA right now. The MACD is looking good. We have plenty of room to go on the RSI. So decent potential to recent highs, about 9% we're looking at here. And if we were looking back to 99.24, we're looking about 15%, 13 to 15%. So also one to be paying attention to with this, be aware of the restrictions that, COVID is presenting. And, because obviously it's going to affect Royal Caribbeans and how they're going to be either expanding or closing down a little bit, whether they're going to be able to get, their ships out or not, whether people are going to be purchasing, trips or not. So be aware of what's going on with that. However, the setup, the technicals are looking fairly decent. We do have earnings coming up on the 5th of May. So just be aware of that as well. The next one that we're going to be taking a look at is MGM. This one, from a technical standpoint, we do have a decent, profit margin available up to, previous highs, 42. That's about 5%. Nothing too crazy with this one. However, from a technical standpoint, if we're looking at the MACD, right down here, we are potentially going to go into, we are potentially curling right now. So we'll see if we end up breaking this cross right here and heading to the upside on the MACD. As far as the RSI goes, we have plenty of room to go before we hit, overbought territories. So this one's trading. It's been trading fairly stable. The trends have been, bullish for the most part. So just pay attention to this one. MGM has been doing fairly well in the last, ever since the beginning of this year. After this little pullback that we saw, we've been pretty much heading to the upside consistently. So it's a great trend. We are still above the SMA, which is this green line. And we do have earnings coming up on the 28th. So just be aware of that. The next one that we're going to be taking a look at is going to be WYNN, WYNN. So this one also, we have 143.88 as previous highs. We're at about 127. MACD potentially starting to curl here as well. We are seeing the RSI only at 42, quite a ways away from 70 before we hit overbought territories. We did break a little bit below the SMA, so that is a reason to be cautious. However, we'll see what happens on Monday. If we do end up breaking above the EMA, that's going to be a great indication. We're probably going to see great moves to the upside. We're looking at about, to previous highs, we're looking at about 9%. And that's with WYNN Resorts. The next one that we're going to be taking a look at is going to be KMX. This one's been performing fairly well. We've been keeping track of this one for some time. Ever since we actually had this pullback, we actually discussed this one in one of the previous weekly stock talks. We did see a nice run up. We saw a little bit of a pullback here again, and it looks like we are breaking above the EMA right now. So just making sure that, we are curling and breaking through on this MACD section and the RSI indicator as well. We have plenty of room. We're at 50, which is a good indication. And so we still have quite a bit of ways to go before we hit overbought territories. From here to previous highs, we're looking at about 5 to 6%. Definitely a good opportunity there as well. The next one's going to be Mpaa. So this one, we ended up pulling back fairly significantly just in the recent pretty much week. We did break above the EMA. We also broke above the SMA. We're looking great on the MACD, and we are looking fairly good on the RSI. We aren't very overbought yet. So from current price points to recent highs, not even previous highs, that's about 8% to where we got rejected previously. If we're looking back at, all-time highs, we're looking about 13%. So this one's also one to keep an eye on, add to your watch list for sure. The next one's going to be HOG, H-O-G. That's Harley Davidson. Pulling back, this one is, I wouldn't say it's quite ripe just yet. And we do have earnings coming up here on the 20th. So just be careful. What I would probably do is just keep an eye on this one and see how earnings go. And then, react to that based on what's happening with the price action. However, we have been pulling back on the RSI and the MACD as well. So things start turning around, we break to the upside here. I see this thing heading up to the upside for sure. Just like I said, I'd probably wait until the 20th for this one before making a decision as to which way I'm going to go on this, just because you want to be more of a reactive trader rather than a wishful trader, right? You want to react to what's happening rather than, try to predict what's going to happen. So that's kind of the situation with Harley Davidson. The next one that we're going to take a look at is going to be BBBY. This one had a nice dip here. We have been consolidating here in this area for some time between 2460 and basically 30.99, and then we had this nice dip happen here right after earnings came out. We had a dip happen. We are fairly oversold, and then the MACD is also setting up fairly well. We are basically in the same price zone that we were, at the beginning of the year right now. So really with this, I wouldn't say this is the greatest opportunity. However, I would say definitely pay attention to fundamentals, because we did see this thing run up to 58 at one point. Not saying that that's what's going to happen again, but it definitely has potential to at least rebound. I would say another 18% to or 14% to recent levels where it was just at. So once again, pay attention to the fundamentals of this and see what's going on as far as catalysts, because that's really what's going to drive this price action. But the dip is there, the opportunity is definitely there if things remain bullish. The next one we're going to take a look at is going to be APPS. So this one, we had a nice dip. We have been consistently slightly trending to the upside here. Let's go ahead and draw out these trend lines. So that's been a fairly decent support level here for it. And we have been bouncing on this level. So we are approaching this level. The RSI is starting to look a little oversold. So we might want to consider this as a possible opportunity. The MACD, we are starting to see a change of color. However, we are still in a downtrend. What I'd be waiting for is a confirmation, which would mean that it would have to break the EMA before I would even consider jumping into it. However, this does look like a fairly decently strong support level. So definitely pay attention to it in the next day or two. I could potentially expect a rebound to maybe, recent highs, which would probably be something around, 15 to 18%. Definitely something to consider for sure. The next one is going to be AMD. So this one, we are holding this support fairly well. However, we have earnings coming up on the 27th. This is why I wanted to bring it up, just because if we're looking at the bigger picture, we have been trending in these levels here. We did have a double bottom here, ended up peaking out here. And we'll see with earnings how that drives it. Like I said with the previous one, be more of a reactive trader and jump into it after you see what happens to the price after earnings. Don't try to predict it. I would say react more so than try to predict. So that's the situation with AMD. Also, the chip shortage going on. Just be aware of how that impacts this company. Once again, pay attention to the fundamentals. But you definitely have a couple more days before earnings. So, something to add to your watch list and pay attention to, not necessarily jump into just yet. The next one's going to be BAC. And this is Bank of America. This one has been trending to the upside fairly consistently since basically, September. This has been doing fairly well. We have seen a few pullbacks, and we did end up seeing this nice pullback here. MACD is starting to look fairly decent to indicate a potential reversal, and we have been holding this SMA line consistently. So we are at this SMA line. We are about to break the EMA. So if we break EMA and get confirmation, this is definitely a great indication to potentially jump into this. And profit potential, we're looking at about 3-4%. However, with the consistent pattern to the upside here, it seems like a fairly great play and a fairly safe option to jump into. The next one's going to be BK. This one had a very significant pullback here. Something similar to this, probably not as big. However, this did happen right after earnings. So like I said, you want to act a little bit more reactive to earnings rather than try to predict them. This one ended up pulling back fairly well. It could continue to pull back. We're going to have to just maintain it and watch what happens with it in the next few days. Like I said, with the other ones, we have been holding the SMA. Same thing with this one. We have been holding the SMA fairly well. So we might end up bouncing on this. However, I wouldn't, like I said, don't predict. Watch what happens to price action with this. We're watching for this EMA break. Once we end up seeing a bounce, confirmation on the MACD, confirmation on the RSI, and a confirmation on the EMA when we break that, that would be a potentially better entry to potentially jump into something like BK. The next one is going to be GoPro, GPRO. So this one, we saw a fairly great pullback here in the last week. We did catch this last move that we saw coming up here. We ended up getting rejected, and then we pulled back again. We are starting to look very, very good on the MACD and the RSI. So, huge potential here. We're looking at about, I would say, 15%, 15% profit potential here if this thing bounces. So with this, they are announcing their Q1 earnings on May 6th. So be attentive to that. There's earnings on the 6th as well. So once again, be more reactive. However, with this, I think we would see great upside potential with this for sure. This is one that I'm definitely excited about personally. The next one is going to be Discovery, and that's DISCA. This one, still looking at this one, we're still paying attention to this one. We are still oversold on this one. With this, we've seen huge pullback. I'm still keeping an eye on this one. I personally have a fairly small starter position going on this. And, I am watching the 35, 36 level for a potential stop for just that starter position, but we'll see what happens. With this one, I'm still, this one really has got my eye for the potential profit that we can make off this, and that's about 52%. So, I'm willing to be a little bit more riskier with this one, considering I don't have a very big position in it. It's very, very small. Once I see confirmation, that's when I would be re-entering on this one with bigger size. And, obviously with confirmation, we're hopefully going to see more volume coming in as well. And that's just going to confirm everything for that. We do have earnings coming up on the 5th with this one. So just be aware of that as well, guys. Just watching this one for now. That's pretty much the plan with this for now. The next one's going to be PINS, PINS, and that's Pinterest. This one also saw a huge pullback here. We were very, very overbought. We ended up pulling back to the SMA line. We'll see what happens in this next week. However, the opportunity is definitely there. From even current prices to recent highs, we're looking about 13%. And we have been holding these levels fairly well here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we did end up bouncing. We do have earnings coming up, so be aware of that. That's coming up on the 27th. But the opportunity, the pullback is definitely there. So, keep an eye on this one. Once again, wait for confirmation to jump in on this. But potential is definitely there for sure. And the last one we'll do is going to be Facebook. So Facebook, with this one, we ended up seeing a fairly strong pullback. This company has been doing very, very well. As you can obviously see, pretty much this entire last month, we've been doing very, very well. We did see a fairly decent pullback down to the support level. MACD confirmed, or is confirming, a potential reversal. We have plenty of room to run on the RSI, and we do have earnings coming up. So, and those are coming up on the 28th. So we'll see what happens from here on out. I think this one has fairly great potential, but we'll see. Even from current price points to recent highs, we're looking at about 2-3%. However, this is a very strong, consistent company. So one to definitely consider for sure. So that's going to be it, guys, for today. And for this week's Stock Talk. If you guys found any value in this, make sure to smash that thumbs up button. If you're not subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next one.